Let's be honest for a second. If you open up any social media app right now, and look for productivity advice, what do you see?
Oh, I know exactly what you see.
It's always some guy with like zero body fat telling you that if you don't wake up at 3:45 a.m., take a freezing cold ice bath, and meditate for 90 minutes, you're failing at life.
Right. It's this whole culture of punishment. It frames routine as something you have to inflict on yourself to be better. It's incredibly stressful.
It is, and frankly, it's exhausting just to listen to. But today, we are tossing that whole hustle culture manual out the window. We're doing a deep dive into something the sources call the architecture of the everyday.
I love that phrase.
It's not about these, sexy, rigid hacks. It's about the mundane, the invisible habits that actually shape our happiness, our health. It's about the story we tell ourselves through what we do on repeat.
And that gets to the absolute core mission of the material we have today. It's all about a concept that sounds so simple, but it's actually really profound. Authorship. The key idea is that we are the authors of our daily routines. And if we don't deliberately write them ourselves, they get written for us by default, by obligation, by inertia.
Okay, hold on, though. I have to play devil's advocate here for a second. Authorship sounds really romantic, but, most people listening have bosses. They have kids, they have mortgages, their schedules are totally dictated by obligation.
Of course.
So how much authorship do we actually have when the alarm goes off at 6 a.m. because we have to get to work?
And that is the crucial question, isn't it? The source material is very clear that we don't control the big things. We don't control the weather or the demands of the workplace. But it argues that we cede control of the margins.
The margins.
Yes. We let the world just scribble in all the blank spaces. We check our email before our feet even hit the floor. We doom scroll while we brush our teeth. We are constantly reactive.
So authorship isn't about controlling every single second.
Not at all. It's about writing the first sentence of the day and the last sentence of the day yourself.
Okay, so we're reclaiming the margins. We're going to pull back the curtain on the really ordinary stuff, the way you make your coffee, the commute, how you shut down your laptop. Because according to this research, these aren't just chores.
No, they're the scaffolding of your entire psychological state. And to really get why that scaffolding is so important, we have to look at the biology. We need to talk about decision fatigue.
I feel like I know what this is just from living. It's that 4 p.m. feeling where if someone asks what you want for dinner, you just want to cry.
That's the feeling, yes.
Yeah.
But the sources go so much deeper. They point to the neurobiology of it. Every single time you make a decision, whether it's a huge one at work or just, which socks to wear, your brain is firing neurons. It consumes glucose. It is metabolically expensive.
You're saying my brain has a literal fuel tank.
It's exactly. Your prefrontal cortex, the part that handles executive function, it has a limited charge. And the research shows that if you spend your morning making 50 tiny, irrelevant choices, should I hit snooze? What should I wear? Should I answer this text? You are physically depleting the glucose levels in your brain.
So by the time I actually sit down to do the hard work, the creative project, or that difficult conversation, I'm already operating with a handicap.
You are operating with a chemically depleted brain. You spent all your cognitive cash on things that just didn't matter. You weren't just annoyed, you're biologically less capable of complex thought.
That is actually kind of terrifying. But okay, it explains why Steve Jobs wore the same turtleneck every single day.
Precisely. He was eliminating a variable. And this is where the source uses this analogy that I think is so useful. They compare a good routine to a railway track for the brain.
I really liked this visual because normally you think of tracks as being restrictive. I'm stuck on a track.
But just flip that for a second. If you're driving a car, you have to constantly micro-adjust the steering wheel, the brakes, navigating. It takes so much active energy.
Right.
But if you're on a train, the track does the work. You don't have to steer. You could just sit back and look out the window.
So the routine automates the mundane stuff. It says, for this stretch of time making coffee, getting dressed, you don't have to decide. You just follow the track.
And because that train is moving automatically, your brain is.
Yeah.
It's free.
Yeah.
And this leads to this really fascinating reinterpretation of Henry David Thoreau. We all learned he went to Walden Pond to live deliberately.
The guy in the cabin, yeah. We think of that as, you have to escape society, go live in the woods, write some grand philosophy.
But the sources argue that living deliberately starts way, way smaller.
Yeah.
It's about brushing your teeth deliberately. It's about building a fortress of habits that protects your mental energy.
A fortress? That sounds a little defensive.
Well, think of it this way. The routine is the wall. It's the structure. But it exists to protect the inner courtyard of your mind. If the walls are secure, then the inside can be wild. You can play, you can create in that courtyard because you aren't worried about all the chaos outside.
I see. So the structure is what enables the freedom. If you don't have the wolves just come right in.
Exactly.
Okay, let's build this house. We have to start at the entry point, the morning. And before anyone panics, the source makes a very specific point here. You do not need to be a morning person. This is not about waking up at 4 a.m.
No, the time on the clock is completely irrelevant. It's about the concept of the threshold.
Which sounds a little mystical for a Tuesday, but walk us through it.
It's practical, but it has this psychological weight. The morning is a transition. You're moving from the private, unconscious, vulnerable world of sleep into the public, demanding world of the day.
That's a threshold.
It's a threshold. And historically, humans have always treated thresholds as sacred.
But most of us treat it like a fire drill. The alarm screams, we grab the phone, and boom, we're scrolling through bad news and work emails before our eyes are even fully focused. We cross the threshold by tripping over it.
Which is exactly what we have to stop doing. The source suggests 3 specific threshold rituals to replace that panic.
Let's get into these. The first one is the pause. And honestly, when I first read this, I thought, come on, really? It's just taking 5 breaths before you get out of bed. Is that actually going to change anything?
It seems so trivial, I know. But think about the signal it sends. If your very first act is to check your phone, you are telling your brain the world's demands are more important than my own state of being. By just pausing for 5 conscious breaths, you are reclaiming your body. You're saying, I exist in this space before you let the world rush in.
Okay, I can see that. It's a micro-assertion of control. Then comes the anchor. This is a non-negotiable act that grounds you.
Right. And this has to be for you. It can't be checking email. It can't be packing the kids' lunches. The source mentions Julia Cameron's morning pages, just writing 3 pages of stream of consciousness to clear out the mental clutter, or, 10 minutes of stretching.
And the third one is nourishment. And we're not talking about eggs and bacon here.
No, not at all. We're talking about cognitive nourishment. What is the very first information you feed your brain?
Because if it's social media,
you're feeding it anxiety, comparison, and just noise. The source suggests replacing that with poetry, or a chapter of a book, or music, anything but the chaos.
Speaking of music, there is this incredible anecdote in the source material that I just want to slow down for because it really hit me. It's about a nurse who works night shifts. So for her, morning is actually 4:00 p.m.
And this is the perfect counter-argument to the whole you must wake up early crowd.
It is. She wakes up and she knows she's about to walk into a hospital. Trauma, noise, fluorescent lights, just life and death. So before she puts on her scrubs, she goes to her kitchen, makes a pot of herbal tea, and she puts a vinyl record on her turntable.
A vinyl record, not a playlist on shuffle. Something intentional.
Right. And she doesn't do chores while it's playing. She just sits there. She holds the warm cup. And she listens to side A of that record from start to finish. She calls it building a sonic wall around herself. By the time the needle lifts, she's ready. But for those 20 minutes, she's just a human being.
That is the absolute essence of the threshold. She's fortifying herself. If she just rushed out the door, the hospital would completely consume her.
So we've crossed the threshold, we've had our tea, now we have to walk into the main part of the house, the workday. And this is where the architecture usually collapses, right? We just treat the workday like a factory floor.
We do. We buy into this myth of linear productivity, this idea that you can sit at a desk and just output work at a steady pace for 8 solid hours, like a machine. But the biology just doesn't support that. The source brings up ultradian rhythms.
This sounds like a sci-fi term. What are we actually talking about here?
Think of it like a sprinter. Usain Bolt can run incredibly fast for 100 meters, maybe 200. But if you asked him to sprint a marathon, he'd just collapse.
Of course.
Your brain works the same way. It can focus intensely. It can sprint for about 90 to 120 minutes. After that, the neurochemicals you need for focus are depleted. You are biologically out of breath.
So when I'm staring at my screen at 2 p.m., unable to write a simple email, it's not because I'm lazy. It's because I've been trying to sprint for 6 hours.
Exactly. You're pushing a depleted system. This is why the source advocates so strongly for time blocking. You give your day a spine. You have focus blocks for the deep work, but critically, you have to respect the recovery.
And this is the part I struggle with, the reset ritual. Because usually when I take a break, I just minimize my work tab and open Twitter.
Which is the worst thing you can possibly do.
Why? I'm not working.
But you're still processing information. You're still stimulating all the same neural pathways. The source calls for a cognitive palate cleanser. It has to be a sensory shift. You have to change the input.
So walk away from the glowing rectangle?
Walk to a window and look at something far away for 60 seconds. Just relax your optic nerve. Or make a cup of tea, but actually pay attention to the sound of the water boiling. Step outside.
It sounds so small, but it stops the day from blurring into one big gray smear.
And while we're on breaks, let's talk about lunch. Because the source is very, very firm on this. Lunch is not a refueling stop at your desk.
No, they call it maintenance for a human being. It is a midday threshold. If you're eating a sandwich with one hand and deleting emails with the other, you are not resting. You are just multitasking with food in your mouth. You have to step away, read a book, call a friend, actually taste the food. Okay, so we've navigated the sprints of the day. Now we get to the evening. And the source uses a great metaphor here. Launching versus landing.
If the morning is the launch, the evening has to be the landing. The problem is, most of us, we crash land. We work right up until the last second. We slam the laptop shut. We fall onto the couch, and then we wonder why we're so anxious. The whole goal of the evening is deceleration.
Which starts with a shutdown ritual. This is especially huge if you work from home, where there's no physical commute to separate work you from home you.
You have to create that psychological border. The source suggests a specific tactic that might feel a little weird at first. Close your laptop and actually say out loud, "The workday is now complete."
Okay, I tried this yesterday. I felt completely ridiculous saying it to my empty office. But I have to admit, it felt like a period at the end of a sentence. It worked.
It's a declaration. It signals to your brain that you are leaving the country of work and entering the country of home. You're taking off the uniform.
But then, of course, we face the final boss of the day, the digital sunset.
This is the hardest part for almost everyone. The screens.
We all know about blue light and how it affects sleep. That's old news. But the source points out it's not just the light, it's the content.
Yes, it's the emotional manipulation. If you're scrolling through social media right before bed, you are walking through a crowded shouting room. You see outrage, tragedy, perfect bodies, funny cats, political arguments, all in 10 seconds. Your nervous system is just agitated. You cannot land a plane safely in a storm like that.
So the suggestion is to replace the screen with analog joy, which sounds charming, but what does that look like in reality?
It means engaging with things that don't shout at you. A warm bath, knitting, doodling, reading a physical book made of paper, or even just a low-stakes conversation with your partner. The goal is to move from high-stimulus input to low-stimulus reflection.
Now, I want to zoom out a bit. We've talked about the architecture of the day, but the source also talks about the week, and specifically the whole concept of rest.
Yes, this is one of the most important sections, I think.
It comes from the psychologist Saundra Dalton Smith, and she talks about the 7 types of rest. And I have to say, reading this, I realized I have been defining rest completely wrong my entire life. I thought rest just meant sleeping or, lying on the couch.
And that's why you can sleep for 8 hours and still wake up feeling totally exhausted. You might be physically rested, but you are depleted in other areas.
So let's not just list these. Let's actually diagnose them. Because I think people listening might be confused about why they're so tired. So let's say I've been staring at spreadsheets all week, problem solving, just focused on logic. I sleep all weekend, but Monday morning I still feel drained. What's going on?
In that case, you are likely suffering from a creative rest deficit. You've drained your ability to innovate and see patterns. Sleeping will not fix that. You need to see something beautiful. Go to an art gallery or look at nature or listen to complex music. You need awe, not just sleep.
Okay, what about the person who has been in back-to-back Zoom meetings for 40 hours? They've been talking, listening, managing emotions. They just feel touched out.
They need sensory rest. Their senses are completely overloaded. The background hum of the computer, the bright lights, the constant voices. For them, rest isn't watching Netflix. That's just more noise. Rest is silence. It's sitting in a dark room for 10 minutes. It's depriving the senses of input so they can reset.
And then there's social rest. This one is tricky because it seems to cut both ways.
It does. If you're an introvert, social rest probably means solitude. It means not having to perform for anyone. But if you're working from home all alone, social rest might be the opposite. It might mean calling that one friend who really gets you, where you can be authentic and don't have to be professional.
So the real application here is to ask yourself, what kind of tired am I?
Exactly. Don't just throw sleep at the problem. You have to treat the specific wound.
We have laid out a pretty beautiful, architectural vision of life here.
Yeah.
But I want to do a reality check. Because life is messy, kids get sick, work crises happen, the train goes completely off the rails. If I try to build this perfect routine and then I fail on Wednesday, I'm going to feel like quitting.
And the source material absolutely anticipates this. It emphasizes that a routine is a home, not a prison sentence. You can leave home, you can get locked out, but you can always, always return to it.
And for those days when the wheels totally fall off, when everything is just chaos, there's the one thing principle.
This is the strategy for the really bad days. If the whole routine crumbles, do not try to do everything. Do just one tiny thing. Maybe it's just the 5 breaths in the morning. That's it.
It's a signal.
It's a signal to your brain that says, I still know the way home. It keeps that path open so you can return fully tomorrow. It prevents that whole shame spiral.
And I think it's also important to note that this isn't static. The source says we need to edit and revise our routines. The routine you had at 25 probably doesn't fit at 35, and it certainly won't at 45.
We are living organisms.
Yeah.
We change. Our routines have to change with the seasons of our lives. You have to be the architect, not just the tenant.
So if someone is listening to this and feeling inspired, but also maybe a little overwhelmed, where do they even start? Because we've thrown a lot of bricks at them today.
Start small.
Yeah.
So small. Don't try to overhaul your whole life on Monday. Pick one threshold ritual, maybe just the 5 breaths, or just saying the shutdown phrase at the end of the day. Do that until it's automatic. Build it brick by brick.
And I want to leave us with the final metaphor the expert uses, because I think it just ties everything together perfectly. It's about the trellis.
Yes. Think of your routine as a garden trellis. It's a structure, and by itself, it might look a bit rigid, a bit wooden, but its purpose isn't to just stand there. Its purpose is to allow the wild vines of your life, your love, your creativity, your spontaneity, to grow upward toward the sun. Without that trellis, the vines just sprawl in the mud.
That is such a lovely image. The structure doesn't kill the wildness. It supports it.
It enables it.
So, to wrap this all up, a life is made of days, strung together like pearls. The routine is the string.
And if I can offer one final provocation to everyone listening, drawn directly from the source, tonight, as you begin that deceleration process, ask yourself this: what is the one tiny, loving promise I can make to my future self for tomorrow morning?
I love that. It puts the pen right back in your hand. You are the author.
You hold the pen.
Thanks for diving deep with us today into the architecture of the everyday. Go write a good sentence for tomorrow. We'll see you next time.